What's the most expensive mistake you've ever made? Paying for medical school for my wife, who then divorced me at the end of residency. Sounds like my sister, who was supported by her ex-husband through law school. He worked at a hardware store in high school, became a manager and eventually a district manager. He isn't fancy or glorious, but he paid 100% of the bills while she went to college and paid for most of her schooling by restoring cars and selling them on the weekends. He worked his ass off, and literally within weeks of her passing the bar exam, she divorced him. He was so confused. She graduated with no college debt and they were set up to have a great life. She ended up marrying a complete asshole who she suspects might be cheating on her, but hey, he makes a lot more money, so at least she can be miserable in luxury. They drive around everywhere in the nicest and newest automobiles, yelling at each other, and their kids are miserable too. She is dealing with major depression issues and is a total bitch to be around, and the new husband is a psycho who is only talkative or nice when he wants something from you. I still hang out with her ex. He is a great guy. I feel terrible for what she did and I feel bad for you. I hope her new marriage is miserable and causes her soul-crushing depression. This happens a lot. When I hear a young person telling people how they are working long hours so their spouse can get an education, I always cringe. My ex got a master's degree while I was killing myself doing all the housework and working at a hard, really physical job. Then he met a younger woman at his new great job and left. Well, my dog ate my underwear once and then I paid $2,000 for her stupid ass to stay alive, the most expensive literal piece of shit underwear I ever owned. Similar thing happened to my dog. She took a sock off the drying rack and swallowed it. Cost nearly 1,500 pounds to get her back to normal. She's such a donut. Wasting my $11,000 inheritance on God knows what, I don't even remember. You spend a little here and a little there and next thing you know you're broke and homeless and could really do with a safety net, but you were careless and it's now gone with nothing to show for it. My son, God bless that little money-wasting fucker. Daddy? There was a leak from my bathroom upstairs to the kitchen right underneath it. Every time someone would shower, water would slowly begin to drip into the kitchen. I thought there was a leak somewhere in the drain pipe and I took the kitchen ceiling down looking for it. And this was an old home, so there was this cement type of plaster with metal lattice work through it on top of wood slats. It took forever to expose the drain pipe, only to find out that the little knob thing on the shower faucet that you pull up to turn on the shower had broken and I just needed to replace that. That piece costs me $7. Then I had to completely replace my kitchen ceiling. I once trusted a person who said they needed cash to go to Boston to see a sick relative. I gave him $80 for a bus there and back. He shows up driving with a friend of his. I then realized he was scamming me. Confirmed the next day when his girlfriend called and said he was arrested and she needed money to go see him. She said that he said I was his only friend, blah blah blah. And she asked for $100 to be money ordered to her. Blocked numbers. I only lost $80, but I learned a huge lesson in trust. Lighting that first cigarette. I smoke and I've done the math. A pack a day habit puts you at $200 a month, $2,400 a year. And I live paycheck to paycheck. Something is wrong with me. In Australia that number is $1,000 a month. I paid several $1,000s to have the backyard fenced in. 2 months after the job was complete and paid for, a neighbor complained that the fencing was about 2 inches onto his property and that it had to be removed, even though the fencing contractor said it had been done strictly according to a survey he had procured. Turned out the neighbor was correct. By the time it was determined, the fencing contractor had gone out of business. I bought a business. Turns out I'm not all that great at being a business owner. What kind of business and why is it failing? Always been curious about owning a business. It's a distribution warehouse and it's actually not failing because all of the previous employees including the previous owner stayed on board. I just quite often feel that being a business owner isn't the right career path for me, but it's not a job that you can just quit. You can sell it? Buying it and selling it after a short time shows the next buyer one of two things. Either there is something wrong with the business or there is something wrong with the new owner. Unless the company has strong assets, stock will most likely be lowballed by a new buyer. Nuked a hard drive that had a Bitcoin wallet with around 30 Bitcoins on it, which would be worth around $120,000 today. Cries while looking at my bank account with $27.03 in it. You probably would have sold early and blown through most of it by now anyway. There's a tech writer in Australia who had what would today be around $8 million in Bitcoin on a hard drive somewhere that he lost. Every time Bitcoin goes up, his co-workers cruelly remind him of his misfortune, mainly because he's pretty good-humored about it. The fact that he probably would have sold them early and only gotten maybe a few thousands or a few tens of thousands at most anyway is pretty much the only reason he can sleep at night. Not expensive for me, but for the state. I used to work for the Division of Forestry dispatching firefighters to wildfires. Two roads on opposite end of the county had extremely similar names. Took a call from a guy reporting a fire on White Pine Road. We were already on site for a fire on White Pine Lane. I said, "White Pine? We have a crew on the scene already, sir." Came in the next morning and saw that there was a new fire on the map. White Pine Road. 700 acres. Whoops. Used to work at a research lab, knocked over a cart with $200,000 in samples. Shot my dad's pistol at a rock wall, ricocheted into my leg, $20,000 hospital bill. Jesus, the upvotes like calm down. Bought a franchise. Lost around $250,000 and had to sell my house. It was an awful time in my life. Allowing my ex to convince me to get rid of my great running vehicle, in favor of a newer one to build credit so we could get a house together. That was June 2015. I paid nearly $400 per month, hardly any dollar for fun until June 2019. We got the house, then she cheated and left, and now it could get foreclosed, lol. Not me, but my parents, not using a condom. Forgetting to put out a candle before leaving for work in the morning. I was in a hotel. Took some sleeping pills right before taking a shower. Turned the water on to let it warm up. I wake up several hours later and the floor is soaked. I was on the 7th floor. Estimate was around $30,000 in damage. That doesn't include all the room changes for everyone below me. My wife and I bought a house because I was always told it's an investment. Then a little over a year later our town went underwater. It's still not back up to how much we paid for it, not including the cost to get it back where it was. The people who told you it was an investment are probably the lucky ones who bought homes for $40,000 30 years ago and now sold them off for $500,000. I had this talk with my dad a couple weeks ago. Yes, a home is an investment, but what they never tell you in the TLDRs that it's one that will support stability over a decade or two. We have neighbors that bought in 2008 and just got their house value back to the value they paid a couple years ago. On top of that, you pay more towards the mortgage's interest than the actual price for the first few years of your mortgage. Not to mention taxes and all will keep you treading water for a while. Home buying is a good investment if you are mostly sure you want to live in the same spot for potentially forever, definitely 10 years minimum. Otherwise you risk taking a loss. The idea of buying a house and instantly reaping in cash from renting out rooms is a risky deal promoted by the likes of HGTV and make-it-yourself self-help writers. I was in a French supermarket aged 3 years old. To keep me entertained, my parents supplied me with one of those little shopping carts you occasionally get for kids. I quickly showed why you don't always find them around anymore. Naturally, my little shopping cart was in fact a racing car, and I was its small but determined driver. We went whipping round corners, evading shelves by mere inches. It was wild. However, my control wasn't what I thought it was, and as I went in for a pacey turn into the aisle, I lost control of the cart. Off the cart and I went straight into the wine shelf. I watched as this long aisle of wine wobbled back, and then slowly came back forward, sending all the wine bottles crashing down onto the floor. It was everywhere. The supermarket were very good about it, and didn't accept a cent back. But I never did get one of those little shopping carts again. Have you made any expensive mistakes? Leave a comment. And subscribe to this channel if you wanna see more same videos.